I watched the new horror movie that is hard to pronounce, so now we're going to talk about it. This is the review of Bugonia, Begonias, Bologna, Baklava, 8 Mile to M&M's an Alien, whatever you want to call it.
Low effort movie reviews.
We won't do spoilers like usual. In the second half, we will. In doing my research on this movie, Bugonia actually comes from a concept of bees are born out of the carcass of an ox that does not spill blood. Don't completely understand it, but that's what I saw. So it opens up with the metaphor about the bees. Jesse Plemons' character is a conspiracy theorist. Him and his cousin Don, who is played by a man on the spectrum. The character is also on the spectrum. I love that they did that. This is actually the introduction of that actor into the acting world, and he killed it. Did a great job. That character alone is going to make or break the film for some people because of a certain scene. But it opens up with Jesse Plemons explaining to him how bees work and why bees are dying off. His idea of why bees are dying off is because of pesticides, things that we are doing to crops, things of that nature. Relates it back to like pharmaceuticals, which he relates back to his job. He works for a pharmaceutical company that is ran by Emma Stone's character. The whole thing is a metaphor about the powers that be killing the people underneath them is to keep them subservient and doing whatever they need them to do. The caveat in this though is that it's not just big CEO, big pharma versus the people. It is aliens. It is the alien race is here to kill the human race. That is his belief system. I believe this movie is going to be very divisive. I left the theater watching this movie not super hyped about it. I understood the metaphors. I thought it was done decently. However, it's very slow burning. It is very boring at times. And there's some choices that were made that I just don't necessarily like. One choice to me is Starvo's character. He plays a police officer that used to be Jesse's babysitter. His whole role in the entire movie is completely unnecessary and doesn't need to be there in my opinion. I understand how it contributes to the greater metaphor of the whole thing. We'll dive deeper into that on spoilers. I did really like the way Emma Stone plays this character. Emma Stone does a good job at being a sarcastic, witty character in her movies, and she does that very well here. Jesse Plemons plays a very convincing conspiracy theorist who is out of his mind, and obviously Aiden is on the spectrum, so he does that job very well as well. I do think that the acting in this movie was great, that the metaphors for the movie were great. I just don't necessarily think the execution was always the best, and that's the end of spoiler free. We're gonna go spoilers. Let's just clear this up right at the beginning. Emma Stone is an alien. That is the twist in the movie. She is an alien in this movie. And knowing that on the back end, it changes some of the way that other scenes played out in the front of the movie. You see this thing in the trailer where she's like, "Where's my hair? Well, why'd you cut it off?" He says, "So you can't contact your mothership." He's right. That is why she can't contact her mothership, because he cut her hair off. How he got that information in his little internet rabbit hole of Reddit and 4chan, no idea. This movie plays big on the ideas of traumas and where they take you is what I got from the movie. You learn throughout the movie that Jesse's character has endured a ton of trauma. One, Starvo's character used to essay him when he was his babysitter, which is the plot that I did not like in the movie at all. I don't think it was necessary. I don't think Starvo needed to be in the movie at all, that character. But that leads to him dealing with something pretty difficult to deal with as a child and feeling isolation. Then his mother, I believe, was a drug addict, ended up needing some type of pharmaceutical something that Emma Stone's company then administered to her. From a quick tidbit of a conversation, dad was kind of a piece of shit and not around. So he had a very traumatic childhood. A lot of things happened to him that weren't necessarily fair or his fault. And now he's trying to find the things to put the blame on to better the human race. And the big thing about this whole movie that you could either find as a happy ending or a sad ending is, in the pursuit of fixing everything, he destroys everything. One of the things I find very interesting about this film is your perspective decides who the villain of the film is. As the movie's playing out, you could say Jesse Plemons' character is the villain. He forces himself and his cousin to chemically castrate themselves so they don't have any distractions, and they're very much able to take control of the situation and not have human emotions or corny thoughts, I guess. Don just wants to do right by his cousin. That's the person he loves. And if you know people on the spectrum, a lot of people on the spectrum have a very human desire to do the right thing all the time. And Jesse's constantly blurring the lines of what the right thing is for Don and convincing him that the wrong things are the right things. Jesse Plemons' character convinces Don to kidnap Emma Stone. The kidnapping scene is actually very funny. They wear Jennifer Aniston masks. Fun fact, the reason that they use Jennifer Aniston masks because the director of this film just loves Friends. In the script of the the movie, it was supposed to be a man mask, but as they went on, he was like, what if it is Rachel and Ross? Well, what if it's just two Rachels? They reached out to Jennifer Aniston and she approved, and it ended up being two Rachels. Emma Stone character beats the shit out of them as they're trying to kidnap her. They ended up sedating her, and that's the only reason that they got away with it, but she put up quite a fight. And then if you have the other perspective, you could have the perspective at the end of the movie that maybe Emma Stone's character was the villain all along and it wasn't Jesse's character, because Jesse was right about the conspiracy theory of her being an alien. He just wasn't right about the reason that she was there. At the end, she decides to completely end humanity. I know that that's a lot to grasp if you haven't watched this movie and you're watching the spoiler portion of this. Let me just explain a little bit. His whole goal is to kidnap her and convince her to let him go on the mothership and talk to the Emperor about finding a way for them to descend off of planet Earth and leave humanity alone. That's his whole goal. And then once you get the revelation of everything that's happening, Emma Stone is actually the Emperor. So the irony is he was talking to the Emperor the entire time, could have pled his case, could have done his whole plan to get them off of Earth. Instead, what he did was end humanity. The reason that alien race is here was because they came down, they were the asteroid that killed all the dinosaurs. They felt bad about it. They made a new civilization here. The humans that they made an image of themselves then became power hungry, fused their DNA with primates, making them more aggressive. They had this aggressive gene that the aliens did not have. They were able to conquer. Now the aliens are trying to get that aggressive gene out of humanity, and that is the testing that they're doing with this pharmaceutical company. They were legitimately doing tests on patients to try to get the gene out of them in order to save humanity. Because Jesse's character was so fixated on getting them off of Earth, they just called it quits entirely. One of the big scenes that I feel is very divisive of this movie is Don does unalive himself in this movie because he gets to a point where he just can't take it anymore. Jesse's character is making him do a bunch of stuff he doesn't want to do. He still wants to remain a good person, but he also really loves his cousin. He has a one-on-one scene with Emma Stone's character where she's trying to convince him like, hey, I can still save you from this situation. Just let me go. I'll make sure nothing bad happens to you. And he says all he wants to do is go on the mothership and leave. It was actually a metaphor for him unaliving himself. It was hard to watch. That part of the movie specifically really sucked. I do have family members with autism, and I've worked with autistic children a lot in my prior life, so that was a little bit more difficult of a scene for me to handle. But I was just editing and realized that I missed a point that I really wanted to make here, and kind of a big point of the movie. Emma Stone's character makes it very clear that the reason that the aliens are there is to try to get rid of this aggressive gene that humans have because it's detrimental to the human race. I believe Don embodied what they were looking for as far as being a human. Don was not aggressive, wanted to be a good person, had complete empathy, just generally not harmful to anyone. Jesse, in his pursuit of everything, became so harmful, ripped away the humanity that Don did have, and because of that, Don took his own life when it came down to it because Don went too far the way he didn't want to be. Her watching Don take his own life because of another human doing all the things that he did was her deciding factor of why she didn't want to keep continuing this experiment on the human race to try to save them. I think that was the deciding factor, that she was like, we're done here. It's gone too far. So not my favorite scene. I understand why it's in the movie. I just think it's going to be divisive. Another scene that I really did not like, Darvo's character talking to Jesse's character. I understand why they put this in the movie. People who have been a victim to something like that are going to have trust issues moving forward in life, and those trust issues can lead to isolationism, finding community online through conspiracy theories, etc. I think that essay is such a prominent part of media today. It's a very uncomfortable topic, and I understand that horror films are meant to be uncomfortable. However, I just don't like them in my movies. It feels like the lowest form and easiest way to make me uncomfortable, and sometimes the easiest way isn't the best way, in my opinion. There is a lot of nods to conspiracy theorists, so anyone who has fallen down the rabbit hole of conspiracy will find some little tidbits of things in here. Obviously, the aliens being the big one. Rewriting the Bible from the perspective of aliens is another conspiracy theory that people believe. I've even said sometimes that maybe God's an alien. You never know. No one actually knows, right? They do the days by chapter scenes, and on the chapter scenes, it is a flat earth with a firmament. They do a flat earth with a firmament. I think that's the word, which is just a nod to flat earthers. They go back to the office, which I learned from research that they made look like a spaceship on purpose to kind of give you that cookie trail that she is an alien. When she goes onto her ship, she has a conversation with the people there, and then right then and there, she decides human race could be no more. pops the firmament, and then there is a long drawn out scene of just the earth existing with a bunch of dead people all around while they were doing things. It seems that they chose very fun things on purpose. There was a lot of people at the beach, there were beautiful sceneries, there was some people at work, things like that, but a lot of depictions of happy settings with just dead people around. Dogs are still around and the bees seem to be thriving again, which I guess the metaphor for that is the only thing killing the human race is the human race, in the same way that you could blame the pesticides and all the things all you want, but it's the humans putting that on the bees. All in all, to me, this movie is just a huge metaphor for the thing killing the human race is the human race. It nods to conspiracy theories. It doesn't necessarily validate any of them or say any of them are legitimately true, other than the one that plays out in the movie. They played it in a way that the conspiracy technically is right. She is an alien, but we are wrong about the reason that the aliens are there. They're actually there to try to help us continue to be a civilization so we don't eradicate ourselves. Makes you think about a lot of conspiracies. How many things have we gotten right about conspiracies, but maybe we're not right about the reason that the conspiracy is happening? I just think it's kind of interesting. But yeah, that is my overall thoughts of a movie that I just saw and am still kind of processing. Like I said, when I first watched it, I didn't necessarily love it, and I don't necessarily love it now, but I appreciate it more the longer I sit with what I saw. I recommend watching this movie, not because I think it's going to be your favorite movie, but because I think it was interesting. I think it's going to be divisive, and I think some people are going to really, really love this movie, and I think it's not going to be for some people. But I think that's for you to decide. That is my overall thoughts on it. If I were to grade this movie, I would give it a C+. I think it's creative. There's a lot of things that were going good for the movie, but again, there's a few scenes that I would like to take out of the movie. It's pretty slow burning. It's pretty boring. If that's not your type of movie, you're not going to be into it. I actually hated the design of the actual mothership and how the aliens looked, and that part of the movie. Didn't mind the twist of the movie of her actually being the alien. I mind more the design and lack thereof is my best way to put it. I just didn't really love that. That's my overall thoughts. Bugonia.